Have you ever wondered what happens to the child stars, whose faces you grew up with? Those instantly recognizable kids who seemed destined for Hollywood's brightest lights, only to vanish from the screen as quickly as they arrived. But the story doesn't end there. Some of these former child stars didn't just disappear. They reinvented themselves and returned, not in front of the camera, but behind it, becoming the creative visionaries, directors, and storytellers shaping today's films and television. Tonight, we reveal the hidden journeys of the child stars Hollywood once left behind, and how they fought to reclaim their voice, their artistry, and their place in a business that tried to keep them frozen in time. Jodie Foster. In the 1970s, Jodie Foster became a fixture on movie screens across America, but behind the scenes, her journey was anything but smooth. Born Alicia Christian Foster in Los Angeles in 1962, Jodie entered the entertainment industry at the tender age of 6, appearing in Coppertone commercials. Her mother, Brandy, managed her career closely, determined that her daughter would achieve the kind of success that eluded her own generation. Jodie's acting talent was immediately evident, and by age 10, she had dozens of television credits, including a recurring role on Paper Moon. The turning point, and the start of her struggles, came with Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver in 1976. At only 12 years old, Foster played Iris, a streetwise New York girl. The film, acclaimed for its gritty realism, also thrust Foster into a maelstrom of controversy and adult scrutiny. According to interviews in Foster's authorized biography by Nigel Goodall, the sudden intensity of fame and the pressure from the film's content left Jodie isolated from her peers and hounded by the media. Foster later described the experience as dislocating, noting in her own interviews for The Guardian that she was forced to grow up too fast, and that many in Hollywood struggled to see her as anything but a child performer. The aftermath of Taxi Driver was difficult. Foster was stalked by an unstable fan, leading to the 1981 attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. Though she was not at fault, Foster became a symbol for the dangers of child stardom. Studios hesitated to cast her, wary of the media circus that followed. For a time, Foster retreated from acting, focusing on her studies at Yale University, where she graduated magna cum laude in literature. She has stated in interviews, including with Vanity Fair, that her time at Yale was a lifeline, allowing her to escape the shadow of her early fame and the overwhelming expectations of Hollywood. It was during this hiatus that Foster began to explore directing. She directed her first feature, Little Man Tate, in 1991. The story, focusing on the emotional turmoil of a gifted child, drew on her own experiences with early fame and isolation. Foster's transition behind the camera was not initially embraced by studios. Several producers reportedly doubted her ability to command a set. But Little Man Tate was both a critical and commercial success, launching a new chapter in her career. Foster's work behind the camera has been lauded for its emotional insight and technical precision. She went on to direct films such as Home for the Holidays and Money Monster, and episodes of prestige television series including Black Mirror. Foster's journey is a testament to resilience. Forced to the margins of the industry that made her famous, she returned on her own terms, wielding the camera as both shield and storytelling tool. Ron Howard. Ron Howard's path from child star to acclaimed director is a story shaped as much by the pressures of fame as by his creative ambition. Born in Duncan, Oklahoma, in 1954, Howard was introduced to the world of acting by his parents, both of whom had careers in entertainment. He made his film debut at age 4 and became a household name as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. In his 2019 memoir, The Boys, co-written with his brother Clint, Ron detailed the regimented nature of his early life, with acting lessons, studio schooling, and a carefully managed public image. Despite his popularity, Howard found it increasingly difficult to shake the Opie image. By the late 1960s, As The Andy Griffith Show wound down, Howard was offered numerous roles that echoed his all-American boy persona. In interviews with NPR and the Los Angeles Times, Howard recalled the invisible cage of typecasting that prevented him from taking on more challenging or varied parts. Casting directors were often blunt. They saw him as a child star, not a serious actor or creative force. Even his success as Richie Cunningham on Happy Days came with the caveat that he would always be remembered for his childhood roles. Howard's attempts to transition into more mature acting roles often met resistance. In his autobiography, he describes the frustration of auditioning for projects only to be told he wasn't right for parts outside his established brand. Hollywood was hesitant to trust former child actors with anything new. The situation worsened when Howard expressed interest in directing. He began shadowing directors on set, studying scripts, and enrolling in filmmaking courses. But many studio executives considered this ambition a vanity project for a washed-up child star. Undeterred, Howard made his directorial debut with the low-budget comedy Grand Theft Auto in 1977, which he co-wrote and starred in. The project was greenlit, largely because it cost so little and because legendary producer Roger Corman was willing to take a risk on Howard's vision. The film's moderate success was a turning point. It gave Howard the credibility he needed to pursue larger projects. Over the next decade, Howard steadily built his directing resume, culminating in hits like Splash and Cocoon. Howard's career as a director soared with Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, both of which garnered critical acclaim and major awards. In interviews with The Hollywood Reporter and in his memoir, Howard credits his early experience as a child actor, not only the discipline, but also the lessons in humility from being typecast and written off, as foundational to his approach as a filmmaker. By persevering through rejection and skepticism, Ron Howard forged a new identity behind the camera, becoming one of Hollywood's most respected directors. Fred Savage. Fred Savage's journey through Hollywood's shifting landscape is a portrait of resilience shaped by the merciless expectations of the entertainment industry. Born in Chicago in 1976, Savage rose to national fame as Kevin Arnold in the hit series The Wonder Years, a show that ran from 1988 to 1993 and chronicled the trials and triumphs of adolescence. By the age of 12, Savage had already been nominated for 2 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe, making him one of the youngest actors to receive such honors. Behind the scenes, however, Savage was navigating a world that offered little guidance for the awkward leap from child stardom to adult career. Multiple sources, including oral histories from the Wonder Years cast and crew, describe the intense pressure Savage faced. The set was a highly disciplined environment, but the attention from the press and the weight of expectation often spilled into Savage's personal life. Interviews in publications such as The New York Times and Entertainment Weekly reveal that Savage's family, keen to protect him, closely managed his schedule, often turning down roles that risked further typecasting. Despite this care, as the Wonder Years ended, casting directors were hesitant to see him as anything but the earnest, wide-eyed Kevin Arnold. By his late teens, Savage found it nearly impossible to land roles that matched his maturity or talent. The industry's skepticism was clear. Former child stars, they believed, rarely succeeded as adults. Savage's early attempts to transition into more serious roles met with lukewarm responses, and he soon realized that his career options were narrowing. He enrolled at Stanford University, majoring in English, hoping that education would give him the time and space to find his true direction, as detailed in his interview with NPR's Fresh Air. The time away from Hollywood, Savage later reflected, was vital for regaining his sense of self. Upon graduating, Savage faced an industry that remembered him as a child, but had little use for him as an adult actor. Rather than accept defeat, he turned his focus behind the camera. Savage began directing episodes of children's television, notably on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, slowly earning a reputation as a competent, reliable director. According to Variety and Deadline Hollywood, his break came when he was tapped to direct episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Modern Family. Savage's approach, marked by an acute sensitivity to actors' needs and a deep understanding of comedic timing, won him acclaim. His directing career now spans dozens of shows, including The Conners, Two Broke Girls, and Party Down. Savage's story is emblematic of the fate that befalls many child stars, beloved by audiences, yet unable to find a place as adults. Forced by circumstance to reinvent himself, he transformed the lessons of his youth, discipline, empathy, and resilience, into tools that now shape some of television's most popular series. Peter Billingsley. Peter Billingsley's face is instantly recognizable to generations of movie lovers as Ralphie Parker from A Christmas Story, the 1983 holiday classic that has become a perennial favorite. Born in New York City in 1971, Billingsley was thrust into the world of show business before he could read, appearing in a Geritol commercial at just 2 years old. By the time he played Ralphie at age 12, he had logged hundreds of commercials and small television roles, making him a seasoned professional despite his age. People magazine and retrospective articles in Entertainment Weekly chronicle how the sudden, intense popularity of A Christmas Story paradoxically led to Billingsley's exit from the spotlight. The role of Ralphie became a cultural touchstone, and Billingsley found himself typecast in the public eye. In interviews, he has described how casting directors could not see him as anything other than the bespectacled, BB gun-obsessed boy from Cleveland Street. As he entered his teenage years, the phone stopped ringing. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Billingsley faced a particularly difficult transition, one marked by diminishing opportunities and the realization that Hollywood had little use for former child stars once they outgrew their signature roles. Billingsley, who comes from a family of actors and producers, used this career lull to his advantage. He attended private schools and took behind-the-scenes jobs, learning the intricacies of production from the ground up. He has spoken about this period as formative, noting in interviews with Collider and the Directors Guild of America that being forced out of the acting limelight freed him to experiment creatively. Billingsley found early work as a production assistant and associate producer, developing an eye for storytelling that was not limited by his previous persona. By his late 20s, Billingsley had quietly amassed credits as a producer, including on Vince Vaughn's breakthrough film, Swingers. The partnership with Vaughn would prove pivotal, as the pair collaborated on several projects, including the comedies Couples Retreat and Four Christmases. Billingsley's directorial debut, Couples Retreat, was a commercial success and showcased his skill at managing large ensembles, a talent undoubtedly shaped by his early days on set. Despite the industry's early rejection, Billingsley has carved out a respected career as a director and producer, working on both film and television. His story is a testament to adaptation. Forced out by a system that pigeonholed him as Ralphie, he reinvented himself as a creator with vision and longevity. As Billingsley told the Los Angeles Times, "Sometimes being forced to start over is the best thing that can happen to you, because it makes you learn every part of the craft." In turning his childhood setback into a launching pad, Billingsley found a second act behind the camera. Danica McKellar. Danica McKellar's childhood rise to fame as Winnie Cooper on The Wonder Years is a classic Hollywood tale. Overnight stardom, endless fan mail, and the illusion of a limitless future in show business. Born in 1975 in La Jolla, California, McKellar's life changed at age 12 when she was cast as the beloved girl next door opposite Fred Savage. The show's success brought sudden attention, but it also created a powerful stereotype. As detailed in McKellar's own memoir, Math Doesn't Suck, and in interviews with The Washington Post, she struggled to find work after the show ended in 1993. Casting directors remembered her only as Winnie, sweet, innocent, and perpetually 12 years old. Despite strong reviews for her acting, McKellar encountered Hollywood's classic problem. She was frozen in time by her early role. The roles she was offered either parodied her former character or required her to play versions of the girl she once was. In a candid interview with NPR's Weekend Edition, McKellar recalled countless auditions where directors told her, "You'll always be Winnie to us." After years of rejection, she made the difficult decision to leave acting and enroll at UCLA, where she earned a degree in mathematics, graduating summa cum laude and co-authoring a scientific paper that now bears her name. McKellar's time away from Hollywood was transformative. In Girls Get Curves, Geometry Takes Shape, she describes how being forced out of acting allowed her to develop a new identity. She became a champion for math education, writing best-selling books aimed at encouraging young girls to embrace STEM fields. The discipline and analytical skills she honed through mathematics became assets when she returned to the industry, not as an actress, but as a director. McKellar's directorial debut came with television movies for Hallmark Channel and Lifetime, where she quickly established a reputation for heartfelt, character-driven storytelling. According to interviews with Parade and TV Insider, her attention to detail, honed in mathematics, translated naturally to film direction. She has since directed and produced a string of successful TV movies, often advocating for women's voices behind the camera. McKellar's Hollywood journey is a story of reinvention. When the industry could only see her as a child, she built an entirely new foundation, one that allowed her to return with purpose and authority as a director. Forced out, she found her way back on her own terms, proving that a single role does not have to define a life. Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman's experience as a child actor in the 1980s is a study in the dangers of early success and the brutal realities of an industry that rarely forgives growing up. Born in Rye, New York, in 1969, Bateman started working in commercials at age 10 and quickly moved on to starring roles in Little House on the Prairie, Silver Spoons, and The Hogan Family. His youthful charm and comic timing made him a fixture on American television. But as the shows ended and Bateman entered adulthood, he encountered the familiar wall faced by many child stars. As detailed in his interviews with the New York Times and The Hollywood Reporter, Bateman found that the industry's view of him was stuck in the past. Casting directors and producers remembered him as the mischievous teenager, not as a leading man or creative force. The offers dried up, and Bateman found himself increasingly sidelined, unable to land substantial roles through his late teens and 20s. In his own words, "Hollywood had a short memory, and it only remembered me as a kid." According to his profile in Esquire, Bateman spent much of the 1990s doing guest spots, TV movies, and pilots that rarely went anywhere. During this fallow period, Bateman developed a keen interest in the creative side of production. He spent time observing directors, studying scripts, and learning about the mechanics of storytelling. In various interviews, including with NPR's Fresh Air, Bateman has described how being forced to the margins gave him the freedom to experiment. His first directorial job came almost by accident, helming episodes of shows in which he had small roles, thanks to the trust of producers who remembered his work ethic from childhood. The real breakthrough came when Bateman was cast as Michael Bluth in Arrested Development in 2003. The success of the series reignited his career, but Bateman did not forget the lessons of his earlier struggles. He began directing television, bringing a steady, actor-focused approach to set. His featured directorial debut, Bad Words, received critical acclaim for its sharp wit and assured pacing. He continued directing on Ozark, earning awards and accolades for his work behind the camera. Bateman's transition from child star to respected director is a case study in adaptation. Forced out of the spotlight as he aged, he re-entered it as a creative force, using the setbacks of his youth as fuel for his later success. His story, detailed in his own words and in industry profiles, is a reminder that reinvention is often born from adversity. Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner's trajectory from child star to one of Hollywood's most respected directors is rooted in a lifelong battle with typecasting, industry expectations, and the need to redefine himself beyond the limitations set by his early fame. Born in the Bronx in 1947, Rob was the son of legendary comic Carl Reiner, a fact that opened doors, but also cast a long shadow. Rob's childhood was spent in studios and writers' rooms, absorbing the rhythms of television and comedy. By the early 1960s, he was appearing in episodes of his father's classic, The Dick Van Dyke Show, and later in teen-oriented series like Gomer Pyle, USMC, and Batman, always as the fresh-faced, earnest youth. In numerous interviews, including a revealing conversation with the Directors Guild of America Quarterly, Reiner described the ways early television success boxed him in. Hollywood's view was that he was Carl's kid, or that funny young guy. Rarely a serious actor, let alone a filmmaker. Even his breakthrough as Michael Meathead Stivic on Norman Lear's groundbreaking sitcom, All in the Family, became a double-edged sword. The show, which ran from 1971 to 1979, was a cultural phenomenon and earned Reiner 2 Emmy Awards. Yet, as All in the Family ended, Reiner found himself pigeonholed. "No one could see past Meathead," he remarked in his 2013 memoir, My Anecdotal Life. Attempts to land dramatic or leading man roles fizzled, and Reiner grew frustrated with an industry that prized novelty but clung to old images. The period after All in the Family was marked by disappointment and reflection. In a 2001 interview with The New Yorker, Reiner admitted he was forced out of acting by the lack of meaningful offers. This professional exile, as he called it, pushed him to take creative control. He began writing and developing scripts, forming Castle Rock Entertainment with a group of friends and fellow creatives. Determined to shake his sitcom image, Reiner decided his best chance was behind the camera. His directorial debut, This Is Spinal Tap, became a cult classic, earning respect for its innovative mockumentary style. But it was only the beginning. Reiner's next films, Stand By Me and The Princess Bride, drew on his understanding of childhood, nostalgia, and the outsider experience. Emotional themes drawn directly from his own time as a sideline child star. In subsequent years, Reiner directed a string of iconic films, including When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. In interviews with outlets such as Rolling Stone and The Hollywood Reporter, Reiner credited his early career setbacks for teaching him resilience and a sense of empathy, qualities he now brings to every project. Reiner's evolution from typecast sitcom actor to master storyteller is a study in perseverance. Forced out of acting by an industry unable to see past the surface, he forged a new path, one that made him a mentor to generations of filmmakers and a chronicler of human emotion. His legacy is built on turning rejection into opportunity and showing that creativity, when stifled in one direction, can flourish in another. David Faustino. David Faustino's early fame as Bud Bundy on the irreverent sitcom Married with Children became both his ticket to stardom and his professional stumbling block. Born in Los Angeles in 1974, Faustino entered show business at age 3, acting in commercials and landing small TV roles. When he was cast as Bud Bundy at age 13, Faustino stepped into a cultural juggernaut. The show's decade-long run made him instantly recognizable and wealthy. But as revealed in interviews with Entertainment Weekly and AV Club, it also ensured that Hollywood would struggle to see him as anyone other than the wisecracking, awkward son of Al and Peg. The aftermath of Married with Children was harsh. Despite his professional work ethic and comedic talent, Faustino found himself sidelined by the same forces that had once elevated him. In his late teens and early 20s, he faced a near-total lack of roles. In candid conversations with outlets like The Hollywood Reporter and on his own podcast, Faustino described endless auditions where he was told he was too recognizable, or simply Bud. Hollywood's indifference was compounded by personal challenges, and Faustino has acknowledged that he fell into a career wilderness for several years, as doors that were once open slammed shut. This forced hiatus, however, became a crucible for creative reinvention. Faustino began producing, writing, and eventually directing, taking advantage of the burgeoning world of online content. He created and starred in Starving, a satirical web series that both lampooned and transcended his Bud Bundy persona. The series found a cult following and proved that Faustino's storytelling instincts extended far beyond acting. In interviews with Collider and Vice, he discussed how directing and producing allowed him to reclaim agency over his narrative, something he hadn't experienced since childhood. Faustino has since directed episodes of web series, animation, and independent comedy projects. While he never landed a major Hollywood directing gig, he has found satisfaction and renewed purpose in helping others bring their stories to life. His journey, chronicled in detail in the documentary Child Star Confidential, is a testament to adaptability. Forced out of acting's front lines by the weight of his own fame, Faustino leveraged his unique perspective into a new role behind the camera. As he summed it up in a 2020 interview, "You can't always control how people see you, but you can control what you create next." Mayim Bialik. Mayim Bialik's journey from precocious sitcom star to acclaimed director and academic is a powerful story of reinvention in the face of Hollywood's relentless typecasting. Born in San Diego in 1975, Bialik was propelled into the spotlight at age 14 when she landed the lead role in the NBC sitcom Blossom. The show, which ran from 1990 to 1995, became a cultural touchstone for its quirky humor and progressive family dynamics. Bialik, as the brainy and unconventional Blossom Russo, quickly became a role model for a generation of girls. But as recounted in her memoir, Girling Up, and in multiple interviews with the Jewish Journal and the New York Times, Bialik faced a set of challenges that would shape her relationship with Hollywood for years to come. When Blossom ended, Bialik was 19, an age when most actors hope to transition into mature, multifaceted roles. Instead, she found herself at a standstill. Casting directors could not look past her television persona, and the offers she received were either cartoonish or flat parodies of Blossom. Bialik has described this period in her life as both confusing and humbling. "I wasn't the cute kid anymore," she told Variety in a 2017 interview. "But I wasn't seen as an adult actress either. It felt like Hollywood had closed its doors." The sense of being forced out, not by lack of talent, but by the industry's limited imagination, was echoed in her candid conversations with NPR and her essay for Kveler, where she described the abrupt shift from red carpets to near anonymity. Instead of battling the odds for roles that didn't interest her, Bialik chose a different path. She enrolled at UCLA, earning a PhD in neuroscience. Her academic achievements were substantial. Her research on hypothalamic regulation in patients with Prader-Willi syndrome was even published in scholarly journals. In interviews with Science magazine and The Washington Post, Bialik credits her time away from Hollywood with giving her confidence and independence. The discipline and critical thinking she learned as a scientist later informed her approach to storytelling and production. Bialik's unexpected return to the industry came first as an actor in The Big Bang Theory, but her ambitions soon shifted behind the camera. Drawing on her dual background in science and performance, Bialik wrote, directed, and produced the indie film As They Made Us in 2022, a deeply personal story about family and grief. In interviews with The Hollywood Reporter, she discussed the challenges of breaking into directing as someone Hollywood once labeled a has-been child star. Bialik approached directing with the meticulous planning of a scientist and the empathy of someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated. Her journey illustrates how being forced out can become an unexpected blessing. providing space to grow in ways that childhood fame alone never could. Henry Thomas. For Henry Thomas, childhood stardom arrived suddenly and left just as quickly. Born in San Antonio, Texas, in 1971, Thomas achieved global fame at age 10 as Elliot in Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The film became an instant classic, breaking box office records and making Thomas one of the most recognizable faces of the 1980s. Yet, as Thomas has recounted in interviews with The Guardian, NPR, and in his own memoir, the aftermath of E.T. was a difficult and disorienting time. Following the film's release, Thomas was inundated with opportunities, commercials, endorsements, and public appearances, but very few substantive acting roles. Casting directors saw him as the wide-eyed, earnest child who'd communicated with a friendly alien, and it proved nearly impossible for him to escape that image. According to biographical profiles in Texas Monthly and interviews in Entertainment Weekly, Thomas felt boxed in by expectations. As he entered adolescence, the offers dried up. His attempts at more mature roles in films such as Cloak and Dagger and Misunderstood were largely overshadowed by his earlier success. The industry had decided who I was before I even knew myself, Thomas later said in a Los Angeles Times feature. By his late teens, Thomas withdrew from the industry, turning his focus to music and independent film. He traveled and played with various bands, preferring the anonymity of the stage to the glare of Hollywood's spotlight. In a candid 2018 interview with Vanity Fair, Thomas discussed the loneliness and loss of direction he felt during those years. I had to find out who I was, outside of Elliot. It was during this period of creative exile that Thomas began to explore filmmaking from behind the camera, experimenting with short films and indie projects. His eventual return to Hollywood was not as a headline-grabbing star, but as a filmmaker with a keen eye for quiet, character-driven stories. Thomas directed several independent shorts and contributed as a creative producer on various projects. While he never helmed a blockbuster, his work has been praised for its authenticity and emotional depth, especially in the horror genre. Collaborations with filmmakers like Mike Flanagan reintroduced Thomas to new audiences, this time as a multidimensional artist, not just a child star. His evolution from forced exit to independent creator reveals how adversity and typecasting can become a catalyst for artistry, empathy, and a career built on one's own terms. Tina Yothers. Tina Yothers' story is one of early promise, sudden stardom, and the long shadow cast by a single, beloved character. Born in 1973 in Whittier, California, Yothers began her career in commercials before landing the role that would define her childhood, Jennifer Keaton on the hit sitcom Family Ties. The series, which aired from 1982 to 1989, was a ratings juggernaut and made Yothers a household name. She was just 9 years old when she joined the cast, growing up in front of millions of viewers each week. According to interviews with People and oral histories compiled by Entertainment Weekly, Yothers' early years on set were marked by camaraderie and the guidance of older castmates like Michael J. Fox and Meredith Baxter. But as the series neared its end, Yothers found herself at a crossroads. Like many child actors, she was caught in the grip of typecasting. Casting directors could only see her as Jennifer, wholesome, precocious, and perpetually in the Keaton living room. In interviews on Oprah, Where Are They Now?, and The Huffington Post, Yothers described the frustration of being dismissed for roles because of her Family Ties face. Despite her efforts to branch out, she dyed her hair black, fronted a rock band, and even took a break from acting. The industry's perception was difficult to shake. It was like, no matter what I did, I was Jennifer Keaton, she reflected in a 2013 Today Show appearance. The forced hiatus from acting, while initially painful, opened new avenues for creativity. Yothers shifted her focus to music, touring with her band Jaded, and began exploring behind-the-scenes roles in television production. According to features in Rolling Stone and interviews with the Los Angeles Times, she became involved in directing and producing small documentary and reality projects, including segments for Celebrity Fit Club and independent documentaries about child stardom. These experiences allowed her to take control of her own narrative for the first time. Yoder's journey has also made her a vocal advocate for child actors, speaking at industry panels about the challenges of growing up on television and the difficulty of being seen as more than a childhood persona. Her story is a reminder that fame at a young age can be both a gift and a curse. Forced out of the spotlight by the very industry that once celebrated her, Tina Yothers found a new sense of agency behind the camera, helping others tell their stories and, in the process, redefining her own. 12th, Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman's life in Hollywood reads like a cautionary tale about the perils of child stardom and the struggle for creative autonomy. Born in 1971 in Los Angeles, Feldman was working in commercials and television before he started kindergarten. By his early teens, he had become one of the most recognizable young actors in America, starring in a string of hit films, including Gremlins, The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys. Feldman and his close friend Corey Haim, dubbed the Two Coreys, were teen idols, fixtures in pop culture and on magazine covers. Yet, as Feldman recounted in his autobiography, Choreography, and in interviews with Rolling Stone and The Guardian, the reality of fame was far more complex. After the height of his success in the 1980s, Feldman's career stalled. He found himself typecast, with the industry seeing him only as the troubled, wisecracking teen from his earlier roles. In addition, personal struggles and highly publicized setbacks made studios reluctant to cast him in leading roles. By the early 1990s, the offers had all but dried up, forcing Feldman to confront the reality of being pushed out of the system that had once celebrated him. In a 2019 interview with Variety, Feldman spoke openly about being blacklisted and having to fight for every opportunity. It was during this period of adversity that Feldman began to look behind the camera for creative expression. He wrote, directed, and starred in Busted, an independent film that, while not widely distributed, marked his first serious foray into directing. Feldman has since directed and produced several indie projects, often on shoestring budgets and outside the traditional studio system. In interviews with Vice and Deadline Hollywood, Feldman explained that directing gave him back a measure of control over his art and his career, allowing him to experiment with storytelling in ways acting alone could not. Feldman has also become an advocate for reform in the entertainment industry, speaking out about the treatment of young performers and producing documentaries about Hollywood's darker side. While his directorial efforts have not brought him mainstream success on par with his acting heyday, Feldman has found a sense of fulfillment and agency that eluded him in his youth. His journey from forced exile to independent filmmaker underscores the resilience required to survive and, ultimately thrive, when Hollywood turns its back. These are the real stories of transformation, resilience, and second chances. Proof that sometimes being forced out of the spotlight is only the beginning of an even more powerful journey. If you found these stories inspiring or eye-opening, please give this video a like, share it with someone who loves behind-the-scenes Hollywood tales, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.